Hey, this is Will Power, and you're listening to the Indy Sports Car Podcast.
Trying to win the Indy 500. Like this, check it out, check it out, check it out. All we need is beats and rhymes and go and spark it. As long we got the underground, yo, we got a market. I don't need a major to tell me how to run it, cause my goal's to win the Indy 500. All we need is beats and rhymes and go and spark it. As long we got the underground, yo, we got a market. I don't need a major to tell me how to run it, cause my goal's to win the Indy 500. Start your engines, pole position got me sitting in the fifth row. You only go if you gas like sicko. And since my terrorist car's brand new, my pit crew consists of me and the binary tool. For your car, you got the luxuries of a star. You got a crew of 2 dozen plus an A&R. That's your axle when you're ratchet, man. Cause after he get rich, man, you skid out in the ditch and be abandoned, need refixing. You also got the pressure, first and second, no lesser. If you don't, you think you drive again, get never. See, it's not about the car, it's the way you driving it. If you can't change lane to maintain, then you won't survive in it. I'm reviving it. The wreckage I steer through, coming from behind, unseen by rear view. You sleep in your seat, don't even know what's the deal. No suggestions on directions, they controlling your will. And if you ever finish first, a platinum trophy is risen. Your prize money, your staff of 2 dozen got dibs in. Know the cars, know the race, cause if you get outsmarted, it don't matter where you finish, you'll end up where you started. All we need is beats and rhymes and go and spark it. As long we got the underground, yo, we got a market. I don't need a major to tell me how to run it, cause my goal's to win the Indy 500. All we need is beats and rhymes and go and spark it. As long we got the underground, yo, we got a market. I don't need a major to tell me how to run it, cause my goal's to win the Indy 500. 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 My goal's to win, my goal's to win, my goal's to win.
Welcome, ICP fans, to another episode of the Indy Sports Car Podcast. What's up, Christian?
Nothing much. What's going on, Missy?
Hello, guys. And joining us tonight, we have a special guest. He is a 1998 Indy Racing League Rookie of the Year. He's had 2 appearances in Indianapolis 500 and finished in 5th place in 1998. And he's also a 9-time winner of Pikes Peak International Hill Climb. Welcome to the show, Robby Unser.
Thank you. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic and nervous as heck because you're an Unser. But we are very, very pleased to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on, Rob, really.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, when Christian said, how about Robby Unser? Do you want him on? I'm like, yes! I couldn't scream loud enough.
Yeah, and no, he was very gracious for accepting, and I definitely appreciate him a bunch for this.
Yep, we can definitely, Christian, thank you once again for, bringing the best of the best to the show. Really, honestly, I mean,
nothing but illustrious guests here on ISCP.
Yep. I mean, if you want to meet a man with connections, Christian is your man. So, yeah. At any rate, so let's get into it, guys. I mean, big race just happened, a big win just happened. I mean,
yeah. Sorry.
we try to be as unbiased as possible here, but it's no secret. Yeah,
sorry,
no
my
secret.
fandom's gonna come out this show. Sorry. I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, all the haters can finally stop hating, I think. I mean, even Missy, what did Will say over the radio as he was doing his?
This is a clean podcast. I cannot repeat that.
Well, I think respect was in there.
Well, yes, respect was in there.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize Will had any haters. I feel like he's definitely one of the more likable guys in the paddock.
Oh, trust me, I get it every week. Trust me, I know there's plenty of them out there. I deal with them every week. I don't care. I'm happy to. Trust me. It's all fun and games, though. Right, Mark?
I say in the paddock,
right, Mark?
yes. But...
Right, Mark Niekirk, right? Calling you out, Mark. How about it, Mark? There you go. Give him Mark a shout out there.
Well, hang on. Before we even jump into that, I mean, it's not often that we do have somebody who's run the big race. Exactly. I'd be curious from Robby's perspective. I mean, what's that like? What's going through your mind the night before? Are you even able to sleep? Is that like, I mean, what's going through your head that day?
Well, I guess it kind of depends on how you're doing going into it. I guess some drivers I think are are going, holy crap, I got to go drive that thing for 3 hours. Some guys are going, man, I can't wait to get out there and see what this thing is going to do, you know? So I think if you drive for Penske, you're probably looking forward to the day. You know, some of the guys, I don't think Gabby might have been so excited, but you know, that's just the name of the game. So depending on how you get in, you have to understand all the guys and ladies are very focused. They're professionals. They're in shape. You know, they're pretty much bedding down, getting what they want in them for food and prepping, as you are for the whole week going into it. You know, you're looking at, is it going to be a hot day? Is it going to be a cold day? I'm sure with this year, everybody was getting fluided up and, you know, ready for a hot there. Yeah, you know, so.
I mean, they said it was the hottest Indy 500 on recorded history, but they had only started recording that in 2007, I think they said. So that's not a big. It's really not a huge stat, to be honest.
Yeah, if you look at those pictures, what of it, Parsons back in the 50s stuff, I think some of those days were pretty warm. Looked like those guys were pretty pooped. I don't know.
It was definitely hot, but definitely worth it being there. That's for sure.
And you know, it was a new car this year, and I didn't see all of the race. I was actually fishing, as I told Christian, but I caught a radio and whatnot.
What did you use as bait?
Fly fish. So all flies.
You caught a radio off of fly fishing. That's awesome.
yeah. Listen to a radio while I didn't catch a fish, so apparently the radio was too loud. So.
It was just the way you phrased it. I had to go with that joke. It was just out there for the plucking. I had to get it.
So yeah, I think it was strange towards the end of the race. It was obvious that some really good guys got taken out as soon as they started pushing. I think they probably found something in the cars that they're going to have to address, at least as far as, how they were late in their stints. But it was nice to see Will win. He is a very good driver. Of course, there's probably a dozen that I would have been okay with. I think there's some pretty decent talent in the IndyCar series right now. It is a bit of a spec series. I mean, we got one car, two engines, so
but
I think
they got 180 different settings they could use.
Well, you have that if you have a different car too. So
that's true.
I
think when the series gets bigger, like it was back in like the early '90s, and the series gets to that point again, I think we could, the series will start opening up again. I think the series right now is just trying to get to that point again, and I think they need to go spec for, money's sake to get the teams in first, so. But I think we'll get there.
I guess you could argue both ways. I don't mind the cars being one car, okay. I still think the engines are pretty crazy, considering every manufacturer out there has 500 horsepower you could bolt into a car. You know what I mean? So
definitely,
these engines seem to be. It's still really, really, really expensive considering it's a spec series. I mean, cut it up any way you want.
Definitely.
Just ask, Christian, how easy it is to get a ride nowadays.
Yeah.
Oh, trust me, we have been living and dying with him with his journey, but it's really a big eye opener, being on the journey with Christian and him getting into MRTI he was so close to getting into Lucas Oil. It was heartbreaking, but gateways are right around the corner, Christian. Gateways are around the corner.
And it's
that's the man. The clock kind of resets when you miss one race, and you just kind of flip the hourglass upside down again and watch the sand go through, looking forward to the next one and correct whatever mistakes. And I think that's probably been the biggest thing I've learned, is just looking at using my time better in some areas. so just kind of learning. It's all a learning process, right?
It is.
And
believe me, what you're talking about now does not get any easier, just like with my last name. In other words, I had a career very much like what you're saying. Little Al had a career where it was quite easy. He came along in a time where car owners, he's one of the first second generation drivers. So a lot of action went his and Michael's direction. Those of us that were younger, we all got shifted into that hunt you're in. Jeff Bravo, there's a whole lot of us that were, came a little after, and money's tight, and it's a tough life, man, I tell you.
No, it definitely is. Now, in saying that, obviously you faced more challenges than those who came before you. What would you say allowed you to persevere through that? What because obviously you still got to run. So what was it that helped you get around some of those challenges?
Yeah, hard work. You had to stay after it. I mean, so it was a little weird in my case. My dad, obviously, and Uncle Al, and I had powerful people in my family ahead of me. Not a lot really came from them. Everyone has to understand they were, they had their own careers. So, you know what I mean? It's not like a lot of the gravy was being spilled over in my direction.
Right.
Because everyone else is trying to race themselves. You know what I mean? So, little Al wants his stuff. Uncle Al wants his stuff, that yada yada. So nothing bad. It's just, what I was that last guy, that was that last pup out, which kid I got, you know what I mean? So anyway, that's kind of the way it went. So for me, Christian, I ended up meeting people outside my family that helped me. And quite honestly, I guess looking back at my career, the more I got away from doing things with my family, the more things went my way. I went out and raced in Europe a little more, my Pikes Peak stuff. I have a World Hill Climb Championship, an FIA sanctioned World Championship. That's wasn't easy to get.
That's nuts, man. Yeah. That is nuts.
And, I'm proud of that. I had to travel around the world doing it. I was lucky enough to drive for Jean Todt, for example. That came from, pretty much kind of my dad saying it wouldn't happen. Peugeot wouldn't ever take a look at me. And in our family, we have egos, so that made me go, I guess we'll find out. I wrote him a letter, and next thing I knew, I was driving as, Ari Votanen's teammate. And
wow. Like an actual letter, like a snail mail letter.
Yeah, no. There's no email or nothing. This is like I literally wrote it on a typewriter.
You licked the stamp and sent it.
Sometimes you gotta
and sent it.
That's right.
I'm 18 years old, so that's 1980 what, right? So.
Oh man.
You know what I mean?
That's wow.
I still have the letter that he wrote back, and it basically said, we're happy to inform you or give you an opportunity to drive the Peugeot 405T at Pikes Peak with Ari. It ended up being Vatanen who got me that ride. Basically, they were looking for an American driver. I didn't know that. I sent a letter, and I had gotten to know Ari at the race the year before. I was close enough to his Peugeot and my two-wheel drive open wheel that he said I should get a chance. And I actually did a slightly better than Kankkunen did in practice and in qualifying. Juha Kankkunen, who's, Ari Votanen's hero, in the same exact car. So Ari sat me down after qualifying and said, well, you just ran better than Kankkunen, so I think your school's over. I'm not telling you anymore. And we ended up being really good friends. So it was a beautiful experience. And to drive actually for Jean Todt, my God, that's Jean Todt. So I was very fortunate. I was lucky enough to go over and be racing in Europe when, Michael Schumacher was just a little kid racing for Mercedes, right? And got to race against him in Dijon, meet him and stuff. So
wow.
I've been blessed. I've had some beautiful moments and met some other really great people in motorsports, and it's been a good, but it's a tough life. I didn't make the money, win the races. I did get hurt. So.
How so?
I still got a plate in my leg from a Champ Dirt Car race. IRL put me 3 times. I saw 100 G's. So.
Oh wow.
I was in that era. My IRL time was, we were spitting them out. Sam Schmidt ended, Hamilton's Brack. I mean, it wasn't fun to hit. There's just some periods of time in motor racing, if you look, where it's like, ooh, if you were one of those guys, it hurt. And
what a track got you?
I got Dallas,
okay.
Dover. I hit in Dover was a hard hit. Oh my God, that thing. And then when you get done crashing, the people are going rah 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 rah. Oh, that was an experience. And then, but the bad one was Texas. Texas just exploded everything. And then I hit pretty good at Colorado Springs. So
was Texas in 2000?
Yep. No, and last race in '99 actually. So.
Okay.
I really hit right before all the soft walls happened. We were developing the soft wall and the attenuators and tethering the wheel. All of that stuff was being thought up and thought about and tested right then at that period of time. So, wow.
Yeah, it seemed like a very developmental stage of IndyCar and open wheel racing was like late 90s to the pretty much 2012 really.
Yeah.
They were just testing things out and seeing what worked, and unfortunately a lot of good people kind of paid the price for it.
Yeah, the soft walls, those 2 years right before when we were talking about but hadn't implemented the soft walls, we were, the speeds
concrete,
at Dallas. Yeah, and I mean the speeds are 220. We were going faster. They weren't putting mandatory slow down stuff. I mean, I remember hearing that Paul Tracy tested at Dallas in a kart car, because this is when we had kart and IRL, and made I don't know how many laps, a few, two or four laps, something like that, that he literally didn't remember. The G load was
wow.
so high he didn't remember making the laps.
Wow.
And I mean, the fighter pilots that I've known a few of those guys, the lateral G's that a race driver is under, a pilot's under positive or negative G's, very few lateral G's in most aircraft. What we fight a lot is lateral G's. So it's a complete different force on the brain.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and the body too. I mean, all of your blood's going to the left side or the right side, over and over and over. Or I guess the right side if it was an oval. So
sure.
Over and over and
but
over.
But both, I mean, exactly. It's the forces are really extreme. I mean, to put it in perspective, my father's last Indy 500, I want to say pole position was 203. Somewhere in there, which that's an aluminum tub, okay, because he quit right before carbon fiber came in. That's fast.
Very.
My rookie test, my slowest speed that I could go was from 205 to 210.
Oh wow!
So you get what I mean?
So what was the speed that you had? Like, what was the highest speed you had to hit?
215. I think you had to do 4 laps. It was. They do every 5 mile an hour bracket. So basically I unloaded, and like the first 10 laps I ever drove around Indy was about the speed that my dad's last race was.
Okay.
That's how things had advanced. And It's not saying that he was going slow. I think it was probably harder to drive his car at 203 than it was, what I was in at 205.
Right.
It got hard at 220.
I mean,
I was.
It kind of makes you wonder how on earth, was it Ari Leyendijk who did the fastest lap ever? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, what was that, like an average of 2:40? Was it two? I can't remember.
Like
numbers.
36 or something.
Yeah. And that's an average. That's not the fastest into turn 1 or 3. So that means he had to have been doing what, like 2:42?
More. I think it was like 2:45 or something that his straightaway speed was. But you have to understand that was that was right at the beginning of the CART IRL split, and I'm pretty sure he had, I think it was a Buick. He had a ton of horsepower. I mean, a lot of horsepower.
What was the average horsepower back then? Around.
Well, I mean, when they had the turbos, and then they kind of said, "Oh, well, run what you wanted." Boost wise, it could be upwards 900, 1,000 horsepower.
Wow.
So when you're running, when everybody gets the rules on and stuff, well, that cuts back quite a bit. Yeah, I don't think people realize that the Offenhausers, like in the old days, those Roadsters and stuff, those things had 1,000 horsepower.
Oh,
a lot of them.
It was just transferring the 1,000 horsepower to the wheels to the ground was the problem with those, right?
Well, yeah, 1,000 horsepower with a tire as hard as concrete.
Yeah.
And skinnier than a tire on a freaking
bicycle.
Honda Civic now, yeah, right?
Yeah, tell me about it.
So they had their work cut out for them. I mean, they laugh and talk about the black marks used to be left all the way down the straightaway. I mean, can you imagine that? Like literally leaving black marks all the way down 5/8 of a mile. Wow. So,
yeah, and now people freak out if you leave a black mark on just the strip of bricks if you win. Remember that? a few years ago when a truck race did that. So
that's a funny story. They did that. They got, I think one of the Bush brothers got in trouble as well for the Cup race when he parked it on the wall and he, put the nose on the front stretch wall, I guess, back and forth. But Sam and I, because I ride with Sam Schmidt in his Aero semi-autonomous Corvette, he did a burnout on the bricks, not sitting intentionally. He actually just tried to take off and did a burnout, and they haven't touched those. They were okay with that.
Well, considering circumstance, I don't think it would be in good taste.
Yeah. Well, I think Sam had he didn't do it out of a disrespectful thing. He did it.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, any reason to jump on anybody associated with NASCAR, and we're going for it.
Yeah, we know you, Frank. We know you.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean,
dying a glorious
death. You can jump on them all you want, but dadgum, you have to give them credit for what they've done in this sport. You just do. I know. I didn't go that direction either, but
I give credit where credit's due.
When it comes to how they've dealt with the fans, they're quite good.
Well, yeah. I mean, if they get any this year,
well. I mean, that's hard all over, but I mean, like, we can argue being IndyCar people.
Look at Phoenix. Oof.
I mean, crickets is what we get. It sucks.
Tell me about it.
And I gotta tell you, have you been to a NASCAR race, Frank?
Dover 3 times, and Pocono twice.
Have you gotten a chance to get around to where you meet the drivers and stuff?
No, I think the oldest I was. When I went to Dover, I think I was 19, and I just went there just to bring my dad because he was a big NASCAR fan.
Sure.
So I wasn't too, I mean, I was.
Yeah.
I was there for him. I wasn't there for me, And I mean, to be honest with you, when the split happened, I was pretty bitter about it. I was one of those fans that was very upset about the split. But there's a lot more that goes into it than the fans know, I'm sure. But
yeah, well, like IRL split you're talking about, right? Kart and IRL.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? I got to tell you, I was at first too, but you realize I and a lot of other guys would have never even had a dream of being able to race at Indy had it not happened.
I do it, yeah, and
I think Tony George knew that, and he saw it coming, and he doesn't get the credit for that. Everyone thinks it was a power play, and it was, but at the end of the day, just like right now, they've got it locked up real tight. I mean,
definitely.
You got to frickin' pry that door open with a whole lot of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not getting in. And I mean, look at this year. How many people did we bump? 2 people?
Yeah, 2. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, I won't even go into that mess, but they finally bumped 2 people.
Which is great. I mean, like, we finally have more than 33 trying to get in, so it's just
Thank God.
progress. Yeah, I know. I mean, we've been waiting 7 years or 6 years for it. So,
right.
I mean, it was 2011 since the last one.
Those things that caused that split way back in the day are why these fields are so slow or small.
What, the bump days, you mean?
No, just the way the business is run of racing.
Oh, yeah.
The people that are in control are very happy being in control.
Of course.
They have no reason to want 40-car fields. You know what I mean? They don't want to send anybody home. They're happy. And there's nobody there to, complain about it.
Plus, the sponsor dollars are so hard to come by right now. I mean,
well, right. What can you give your sponsor dollar?
Exactly. I mean, they look at return on investment, and
exactly.
I mean, the one series that has gotten most of the sponsorship money the last decade, they haven't. It's been on such a decline, and they're not race fans. The sponsors, I mean, they're it's just they want to return on investment on their money, and I mean,
it's entertainment. I mean, it is literally an entertainment business, and that's why I say, have you been to NASCAR? Because in my experience, the one thing different about those 2 premier series is IndyCar's not super accessible to drivers and cars. I mean, it just really isn't. They're trying to get better, luckily.
You mean are you talking about it's super accessible to like the fans?
For the fans, yeah, for the fans and the stuff. You have a much better shot of getting to a NASCAR race if your kid meeting one of those drivers than you do an IndyCar race. Well,
I would have to
the lines aren't. The lines aren't very long anymore.
I mean, if you go to Pocono, they have a big old fence for NASCAR racing and how close you can get to the drivers, compared to IndyCar, where you're on the other side of the fence looking at, like, why is that fence there?
Sure. Okay. Now that yes, for that side of it, I agreed. But you could also argue that the reason those fences are up were the massive amount of fans that they had to deal with at one point.
Exactly.
I guess I'm more NASCAR has to partake in a lot of driver stuff. From the series demands the drivers to do a lot for the fans. In IndyCar, it's largely left to the teams to do.
Yeah.
Although I would say that the series is starting to get that way. Mandatory autograph sessions and stuff. That was just starting when I got out of IndyCar. You know what I mean? So we were behind on that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we probably wouldn't, no, not probably. We definitely wouldn't be doing this show right now if it wasn't for, I would say, IndyCar being one of the most accessible top tier, racing series for the fans to getting in touch and with the drivers and pretty much mingling with them, talking to them, and them being so accessible.
They're getting steps are taken that way. I think the 2-seater program was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
But across the board, we're behind.
Oh yeah.
We're still following NASCAR in that realm.
Oh yeah, I
So,
mean there's no doubt about that. But slowly but surely catching up. I mean, personally, I've been saying for years now that we need one network covering the series so they can,
well,
y-
yeah,
you,
the
you know,
TV deal is,
e-
yeah,
and we finally got that with NBC. So now NBC can allocate more money to the product since they have the full product.
right.
Uh,
Yeah, the days, I mean, the heyday of my dad and ABC when he was a commentator,
which is
what
what
I
we're
would
all
call the
hoping to get
heyday,
back. Exactly,
yeah,
definitely.
that's when,
And that's what we all remember.
yeah, we don't have, yeah, that really is. And it's a tough deal. I don't, I still say if they had a little more factory support and opened it up to more engines, they'd have a better luck. But everyone's got an idea. I
No,
mean,
I agree with
doesn't
you
mean my idea is
110%
worth a
there.
crap. It's just what I think,
What you think is what we've all been preaching on this show for years now. We've been wanting more than two engine suppliers. We were hoping for one.
Definitely.
I mean, we
We need
were,
to have the manufacturer.
yeah. I mean, during the off
Well, why
season,
can't we run an engine that literally take it out of a Ferrari or I don't care what kind of again, every manufacturer has them in a Corvette and
Yeah.
whatever, GT40, and put that engine in the car and say, you're going to go 3,000 miles. That's
Mhm.
it. There you go.
yeah. I mean, Lotus was a terrible idea, because most of their cars don't even have Lotus engines in them.
Right.
So why don't we get Renault in there since that's what's in them? So get a Renault engine supplier over here. Or how about
Well,
or maybe McLaren next year? Who knows? Or it's just all over the freaking.
well, but here's the kicker that, okay, as an IndyCar fan, there's no more relating to anything that you can drive. It's a
Exactly.
spec car. There's no AJ Watsons. There's no Grant Kings building special this or special that or Dan Gurney's,
Right.
making stuff. There used to be a group of people that were fans of car owners. There used to be a group of people that were fans of mechanics and engineers. You know what I mean? Because
Sure.
there was new stuff coming up. That stuff is gone. I mean, I have a whole lot of friends looking for work in Indianapolis these days because the amount of jobs for IndyCar is really low compared to what it used to be because not IndyCar itself, but the side deals. There's no side guys doing shocks and carbon fiber and, welding suspension. You can't. There's one store you go buy your parts from. If you don't work for them, you're not building nothing for an IndyCar.
Yeah, I mean, like right down to the brake calibers. Like I mean, it used to be Brembo. It's another company now, but it's the same.
I mean, you can't get a
Yeah.
washer from the frickin', bolt
Yep.
store.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Definitely.
for me, there used to be a whole industry that Indianapolis floated with, heck, even the government there locally gives you a break for having a race team there. It was a very big part of the Indianapolis industry and local industry. And I just see that it's hurting now. Those guys have moved to sprint cars and to some other things, and a lot of them have had to move down to Charlotte and stuff like that, where you still, that's again, NASCAR, you're still building cars.
Yep.
They're still American made. They're still getting welded together. You follow what I'm saying? You still have engine shops.
Yep.
All of that I just said doesn't exist in IndyCar, unfortunately. And
Yeah.
I like Delara. They're nice people, but
I was really pushing for Swift personally.
yeah, well, I mean, the point is it's fine if you want to have a Delara, but you can't fix your own wing. So those guys that fix carbon fiber in their little shop, they're out of business. You see what I'm saying? They can't work
Definitely.
on your business. They're now making hoods for a sprint car, that kind of thing. So,
And to be honest with you, like NASCAR is actually kind of going towards that same thing because teams are laying a lot of guys off because they're downsizing because we have a good friend Richard Yowden. He spent 10 years over in Williams F1. He was on Richard Childress Racing, just downsized massively and laid off half of their half of their guys last year, and Richard's still looking, and he's had offers, but nothing close to what
It's tough.
Yeah, I mean, it's like either you take a huge pay cut and still do it, or
Yep.
you find another line of work, I suppose.
You go work for aviation or something different. Exactly. And so that times are changing. Things are more digital, so to speak, less analog. And it's the sign of times, but it really is the same problem. I feel for Christian and any young driver nowadays. My niece Lonnie, my cousin Johnny's daughter, is starting to race, and she's really, really good. She's, she's just in college now, going to CU, just starting out running Miatas. Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
she does a wonderful job. But the idea of how, Johnny and I came through racing, we've got to look at it different for her. And we're just hopeful she has, good experiences, learns good things.
And she's safe.
Stay safe, obviously. That's always the first thing. But more important with motorsports these days is, do you develop yourself to where you can do other things driving? Are you just trying to get to the podium? Or are you actually trying to have a career in driving and in motorsports generally? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So there are a lot of avenues that are now open that didn't used to be, I have to say, for drivers. But you got to be a little bit more of an open-minded thinker than,
right.
Definitely. My day, you were, your gun was aimed towards Indy or whichever, NASCAR, F1, whatever you were going towards. And right. You had to stay very, very focused, and you still do. But there's a lot more options out there and types of racing that you can get into.
No, I mean, you raced Indy Lights for 2 years, 96, 97. Mm-hmm. And then, how do you feel about MRTI, just speaking like the last maybe 2 years? Because I think it's really taken off in the last 2 years.
I like it a lot. I mean, I did come from Indy Lights. My Indy Lights year was my rookie year was also a rookie year of, this other dude. He was okay. Tony Kanaan, Helio Castroneves, Cristiano D'Amata, Greg Ray. It was like reading, are you freaking kidding me?
It's like,
what the hell?
I was born in the wrong time.
Shit. The next year, Scott Dixon, I mean, he great job, but he had like nobody to run against. It's like, okay, there were 3 or 4 guys. Honest to God, my years through Indy Lights was like, I don't even believe this. I mean, I was good on ovals, didn't have, the Tasman or the best teams, but I did see, the birth of those guys. When I was in Indy Lights, we started a CDA thing, so I guess I was lucky to know racing the way I did. I was a big part myself of organizing the drivers, our safety group, different things that they're still doing today, actually. So I feel proud that I, had the foresight to see that, and, spent a lot of time with Kanaan and Helio and, David Empringham and a lot of guys that worked really hard on what they were going to do.
Speaking of Helio, your personal opinion, what did you think about this year and how Roger put him into IMSA? I thought it was almost an insult, to be honest with you.
So for him to be running IMSA?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It depends on if he likes it or not.
He doesn't.
If he doesn't like it, then
no, he doesn't.
He hates
but
it.
I feel like, Frank, though, there's something there that we don't know. You know what I mean? Obviously, we're looking at it from the outside.
He has a contract with Penske, and he's his boss, so he does what he's told.
Well, and I got to tell you, it comes to a point, look at the drivers that Roger has. Rick's still there. There's not a lot of slot. What do you do when you're done with Roger? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, it's like the
I'm
top
sure.
of the heap. Where do you go, right? Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Do you-
I mean,
there's no place but down, right?
Helio's obviously one of Rogers' favorites.
Yeah.
You know,
So
I
I
like
guess if
Lori.
you're
He
starting a new
changed a
team,
bit.
put your best guy in there, maybe.
Well, is he? I don't know if I would say that anymore.
Well,
He's one of your oldest. I mean, look at who you've got.
I was just kind of throwing out like a devil's
Yeah.
advocate kind of thing.
I think it's more like, I don't know, I guess if I was going to guess, which that's all that is,
Yeah.
I would say Helio would be somebody I would put in a car if I'm needing to make a sponsor really happy, get something going for a team that might not have it done yet. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I mean, plus,
Helio's definitely a draw.
Exactly. I mean, he's great for the sport. He really is.
Sure. So maybe Roger needed some help with that team, and he said, Helio, I need your. We don't know. I wouldn't say that it's a demotion. I don't think Helio's set up to be demoted. I mean, Al Jr. didn't leave necessarily the best way for Roger, but most other, Helio's not that way. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, Elio's a 3-time, Indy 500 champion. I mean, and then you send him to IMSA. It's just, and he was, I mean, he's winning or putting down poles at Long Beach, and everything, and he ships them off to IMSA. I just didn't get it. It really just didn't sit well with me, to be honest. I just didn't. But then again. If you wanted to,
but we don't know what Roger needed to have. And again, it sounds to me like
there's got to be something.
What does Roger need to have happen? So, I mean, Helio is still going to be. He might not be your youngest, fastest bullet, but he's your best bullet.
Definitely.
Right? You know what I'm saying? He's your most accomplished. He's for sure the best talker and the most charismatic. And so, if I got to make a sponsor happy. I guess I'd probably send him in.
So there you go.
I mean, he is teamed up with another charismatic guy too. He's teamed up with one of the Taylor brothers. So.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a really good team, but again, nobody knows better than Roger. Sponsors make this deal happen, and
yes, they do.
Definitely.
That's the only way you're going to land one of those rides anymore.
Now, what did you think about all the one-off drivers that came through? It just seemed like a very, as far as the one-offs, I mean, like the guys that weren't, racing the full season, they just came for the 500, and it was good because we had 35, so that's good. But the drivers that came, it just didn't seem like. It was the best of the best, and that's what we've always looked at Indy like. This is where the best of the best go, right?
Right. Well, it used to be that. So, when I was younger, you literally went to Indianapolis with the helmet bag and ready to go. You showed up early May. You got your physical done just in case,
Right.
And there were guys with extra cars. You got to understand now we're in this spec series again, back to the same old thing.
Uh-huh.
They're all planned out. They've got X amount of cars for the season, X amount of wings, X amount of blah, blah, blah. That's why when we had all those crashes, remember Delara got into a big, we don't have enough parts problem. That's happened a few times. So there's no spare cars. And so the only guys you're seeing with helmets have a helmet bag in one hand and a bag of money in the other. I mean, you always had to have something, but it used to be that A.J. Foyt usually put somebody in a car with or without money, or at least very little. You know what I mean? There were guys, Dick Simons. There's no Dick Simons anymore. So what you're missing are the teams that only run Indy. You used to have Hemmelgar and Dick Simons. There was a lot of really good teams that sometimes ran a whole season, but often just would run 3 or 4 cars for the Indy 500.
Yeah,
so,
just like Dry Reinbold did this
there
year.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So that is what I think is missing. There's, maybe one or two of those guys. You know what I'm saying? But
you can almost argue it's coming back, is what I'm saying. I'm
hopefully
looking at Indy
it's coming back.
I'm very hopeful about it, and from just following it since they remerged, and and how because we've been going to races since 2011, I think. Missy's first race was that New Hampshire debacle where they all crashed at the last lap because it was raining on an oval.
Yeah.
So and
Yellow didn't make it out fast enough.
Yeah, Danica took out half the field, and Will,
Dude, and it all comes down to cars, okay? Yep. So, so you and I, let's just say, Missy walks outside, a big old bag of money hits her in the head, falls from God. Great, we got the money. You say, hey man, let's go to IndyCar racing.
That would be awesome.
I'd love to win it, go run Indy.
Yep.
How are you gonna do it? You got the money, now what do? There's not physically enough cars and engines, no matter how much you have,
right,
for you to do it unless you plan really early. So hopefully it'll change. Hopefully they're going to get, a little bit more going. I do like that we've got some good drivers. I do think that I'm really happy to see that crap from behind the rear wheels gone.
Oh, God, yeah.
I can't tell you how much I'm...
Yeah, I mean, because they were becoming just an open wheel single seater prototype car, really. I mean, it was just, and all that downforce. I mean, oh my God. So I'm really happy to see the look of the car, big improvement over last year. Huge.
The fact that they're having to drive them, big improvement. I think that it should be in the car that they have to find it, not tire guys making the difference like they did last year, where they just made tires that would only go for 4 laps, and then guys are trying to save their life for 35 laps. That to me is just not fun.
Yeah. And plus when they had when you got the camera over their head, it looked like anybody could do it. Yeah. I mean, they weren't fighting the car. This year, they're fighting the car every inch of the track, every track they're on.
Oh, we've already lost a pedal. Yeah. I mean, there's only 2 down there now. My day, we had 3. 2 feet, 3 pedals.
Sounds like jealousy to me, Robby.
You know what I mean? All
I'm kidding.
They don't even have to move their hand off the wheel to shift anymore. So things have gotten more focused, and I understand. I mean, more focus,
technology
less
changes,
physical movement, all da. But at the same time, if you're a fan, you know what I mean? I want to see some action. If I'm a fan, I want to see a guy actually drive a car.
Exactly.
If I'm a fan, I want to see, the difference between good and bad. Not everyone's good. Really? Oh, okay. You get what I'm saying? So
first
you're going to have arguments from race drivers different than fans.
I mean, I loved when Will won on an oval, I think, last year, and he was mad because it was too easy. And he was just like, this is ridiculous. The first place car is going just as fast as the last place car. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
it really is ridiculous. I mean,
I mean,
where's the strategy coming out? And they're just
basically off strategy, hoping for yellows.
There you go. And unfortunately, we're to a point to where if we let these engineers actually go.
Yeah.
My God, what they would be able to do. That's the other thing I don't think fans understand, that technology is to the point to where, in my opinion, they almost got to dumb it down a little bit, which is quite honestly why NASCAR's been so successful, because they've just kept technology at a crawl. But
honestly,
racing
I think
has stayed up. You know what I mean?
Like this new car, they did dumb it down. I mean, they took downforce away. They made it a driver's car as much as they can at the moment. And this car has really pretty much kind of almost outed the people that really don't belong there right now.
Well, and that's what they need. I mean, I gotta say, I'm really becoming more and more. I've always liked all racing. That's fine. I lately have becoming a lot more of a fan of F1 just because they're still making them work. Yeah, I mean, these guys have to build cars every year. I love it. They're actually keeping their people working. I love it.
They're actually, yeah. I mean, like you figure halfway through the season, they're already starting to build the car for next year. You know.
Yeah, halfway through our season, guys are just looking for where they're going to go fish in the winter. They know what they're going to do. They're not going to be building no new car. They're going to go test. They can only test certain times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love it. F1 to me is taking Indianapolis led the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, most of the 2000s on technology for open wheel racing and safety, I think. And I think now F1's really kind of doing an amazing job. And they've all got B teams. I mean, they're having to do their work. And they got guys working.
As far as safety goes, F1 is leading the field. I mean, yeah, Alonso walking away from that crash last year,
right,
after he hit Grosjean, or no, not Grosjean, Gutierrez. That was pretty insane.
Right.
So there you go.
And what they're doing with Aero, everything, they're moving. So it's a different platform. They're still racing cars. We're gotten away from racing cars and we're just racing, if that makes any sense, putting on a good race. It is paying off. I gotta say that the IndyCar races in the last 3 years have gotten much better. We had a very dry spell there for a little while, you know what I mean? But
definitely, yep.
They're getting better, more fun to watch. I don't know how they're going to translate that into actually getting fans again. You know what I mean? Because if you really want to get to it, look at who we're trying to get in the seats. Now we got to go after young kids. Well, now that's a whole nother subject. These kids ain't into this stuff anymore. I mean, you got to come up with racing a cell phone or so. I don't know what it's going to take, but
well, that's why I love MRTI right now. I mean, MRTI is getting so, just
it is.
How do I say it? Yeah, it's getting so. Christian, help me out here. Like, why do you want to be an MRTI so bad? Put it that way. You'll probably say what I'm trying to get at.
I just think that the ladder is pretty clearly defined. I think that's probably my favorite thing about it. Obviously, you've got the scholarship perks, which help, for somebody who is running a full year, and if you're able to win that championship, it's like, okay, I feel definitely more supported in jumping up to that next rung, and that's really cool. I enjoy that IndyCar kind of lends some of the media coverage. Obviously, not all of it. We don't have a TV package like the Verizon Series guys do, but at least that all the races are broadcast on the IndyCar fan page, and you kind of feel like, you know what, I'm not one of those guys, but I am kind of one of those guys. You know what I mean? And that's cool, man, to have you be groomed that way and to have you be comfortable in those circles and doing stuff that you're going to do, except for the fact that we only run one or two ovals. Other than that, everything else is pretty much grooming you to be at that Verizon Series level. And I think that's probably the coolest thing I think.
Yeah, and MRTI rewards talent, not money, which is nice.
I was the big thing there is that you got a shot of doing good, being good, and getting somewhere.
Right.
Is the difference I see that I really like about it. Quite honestly, I think the officials, Dan owns the series, it's been a brilliant thing. Having Mazda back it, it really, when I ran Indy Lights, it pretty much was Indy Lights. There wasn't a ladder. There wasn't. There were Formula
There was
Fords
SCCA.
there was, but you had to go somewhere else. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
The ladder was out there. You had to go figure it out. It wasn't all put together nicely for you.
And you were racing in
direction.
And you were racing in front of nobody, really.
Right.
Whereas
at least now these guys have a chance of somebody seeing them run. I mean, at the end of the day, that's when I did Lights, I laugh about the group we had. It was, You know, really was an honor to have all of those guys.
It was the
early
All-Star
on.
group.
I was really old for those guys. I mean, but I had them all covered by 10 years. But nevertheless, it was us being around. You know, that's how Roger saw Helio. That's how they got their rides. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Cristiano went off to F1 and did some stuff, and you know, everybody kind of branched off, but they were in the light. I think that what I see now is even more support from the IndyCar series than was there even when I was running. You know what I mean? I mean, you've got the whole ladder, the Pro Mazda, the 2000, all of that stuff combined with a direction. And, you know, like I said, back to how I met Christian, was coaching Charles Finelli actually on a computer while I'm in Gunnison, Colorado fishing. They've got the training down with the simulators now and the cars being so much the same and coaches being on track and the data that everyone can change. I mean, it's a different world than when I raced.
Yeah, definitely.
As far as assets and tools that you have in your toolbox to learn as a kid with, you know. I didn't have that. I had to wait around. I mean, there was no simulator. My simulator was
it was hard to get track time when there's nothing to race with, you know.
Yeah, well, it took money. You had to burn tires and actually maybe hit the wall, and you know, you couldn't just hit reset.
Exactly.
Right. There was no reset button. You know what I mean? Reset was looking at a nurse going, huh, okay.
Well, yeah,
No good.
yeah, right. Well,
that's
going, well,
not for nothing, but that reminds me of the beginning of Christian's book.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. My book starts off with that wreck I had at Mahoning Valley and broke a few ribs and I was very much looking at the nurse like, well, right. Yep, definitely.
Too many times, yeah.
Speaking of MRTI, so they raced this weekend. The whole series raced this weekend. And you had Kyle Kirkwood take the Freedom 175, not the Freedom 100, Freedom 75. And Kalen Frederick and Rasmus Line was your top three there at Lucas Oil. So congratulations to Kyle. He did an awesome job. And then Pro Mazda, you had Parker Thompson, of course, won. Woohoo! And then Carlos Cunha did a great job. Robert McGinnis was your top three for Pro Mazda. Their race was really exciting. The Freedom 100, of course, Colton Herta won. You know, Pato Award came in second, and Dalton Collette was your top three there. So that was a great race too. A lot of passing going on in that race.
Don't let that race fool you. Pato is the number one talented driver in that. I mean, it's quality over quantity in Indy Lights right now, and Pato's by far number one as far as talent goes. That
was my favorite race the whole weekend, man. That was
half a car length. I mean, Pato just
that's
ran the tires off, and he just had no grip coming out of Ford to make a good launch. I felt bad for that, but hey, what are you gonna do?
Called racing.
Exactly, and that's when, and it was exciting. It was exciting, and that's when we first met Christian for the first time in person. Yep.
Okay.
Well,
and they start that deal with the MX5 Cup, right?
Yeah,
Christian. Yeah. I mean, that's it, you know.
Yeah, that's part of MRTI too. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, no.
As far as this year, yeah, or what was it last year that they started? Or was this year? It was. I think it was last year.
I think it was last year.
Yeah,
it was last year. Yeah, but I still don't really get it, because I mean, where does that go? Like, where does that fall into
road racing, maybe?
Into any of the fold, but it's
well, actually it is a pretty good, I mean, to be honest, it makes sense to me in this. I would honestly say, I mean, it's why we've got a Miata for Lonnie to start with. If you're just starting out, okay, your first step, besides go-karts, right, but your first real step in a real car, okay, what are you going to do? What is out there that gives you everything you need? It's the only car you still have to shift. You still need a clutch. You have to learn to actually heel and toe. You have to learn to actually drive a car. Yeah. It handles really good out of the box. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know that there's any other choice. It's not front wheel drive, it's rear wheel drive. You know, if you go down the list of driver training attributes, right? How are you going to learn to drive a car? Where else do you start? You know, besides a go-kart, that's your next deal.
Or like F-1600 or like
but even then, that's second step.
Right.
I mean, that's
Yep.
your second step. I mean, you've got to learn to heel and toe. You've got to learn to right foot brake and left foot brake. You've got to learn to shift.
When you say heel and toe, what exactly do you mean? No. That's for the listeners out there. That's for the listeners out there. I know what it means. I know. But that's
I know.
For the listener
But the
out there.
fact that we even have to ask it is funny, and it ages me.
It's 2018, so
yeah. So heel and toe is where, again, 2 feet, 3 pedals, 1 gear shift, right? Not paddles. So you have to downshift from 4th to 3rd, 2nd to 1st. You have to rev the engine up to match the gears, and you have to be braking at the same time, and you have to use the clutch. So, and this gets into, you know, why I think that in my family, Pikes Peak taught my father and Uncle Al so good to road race, because imagine this, sidestep, 2 pedals, 2 feet, and the brake is a hand brake, so a steering wheel and a gear shifter. Yeah, put that in your head. Now you got to stop, pull the handle, turn the car with the steering wheel, now downshift.
Yeah,
figure all that out.
Yeah, and that handbrake is basically just so you can pretty much just drift, right? Like,
no, that's your brakes.
Oh.
There are no brake. That is.
It's a clutch and a clutch and glass.
Clutch is,
no kidding.
The clutch is your foot.
No kidding. Okay.
No kidding. Those were all them. You see them old cars in the 50s where they had that handle outside the car?
Yeah.
That was their brakes.
I remember that. Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Literally. So what it taught you is timing, how to slow the car down, when to downshift late into the corner. So what ends up happening, and I won't get into it, but you actually learn how to shift the car and how to not stop a car and get into a corner, because you really have to think about what you're doing. You don't just go down there, hit the brake, grab a bunch of paddles, turn the car. You follow what I mean? There's a finesse to it. Yeah. Now go further to a Miata. You still have to do that, but you're doing it with your feet. So heel and toe is pushing the brake, rolling it over, and grabbing the gas, revving it up so that you can downshift all at once. Making this happen in a smooth way is, in my opinion, your first thing you have to learn before you're able to drive. So Miatas really is a brilliant move for starting as that first step. You know what I mean? Into a car. The only problem is now moving into the Formula cars, it's so different. There's not much translating anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as soon as they brought in the Titus chassis, it all went away. Yep.
Right.
But then again, you look at Formula One and their technology that they're at. So, I mean, but you got to start somewhere. So you get the basics down. So then when you get into the higher tech type of cars, you already have the basics down. So now you get, you know what you're doing. So I follow what you're saying. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense now. That makes more sense.
And then if you're going to go run endurance races, then you need to know that stuff.
Which
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and which, by the way, where what series do they pluck all the endurance drivers from when they need more drivers? Just throwing it out there.
Right.
Exactly.
So, learning that basic, again, for my niece Lonnie, Johnny and I spend a lot of time talking about these things. It's about a skill set.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And then practice makes perfect, but not really. Perfect practice makes you actually perfect. So you've got to actually practice correctly. So, and
that takes a good coach.
There you go. Well, coach and, the right repetition. It's all muscle memory. Mm-hmm. It's all things that you do. That's why even at my age, I can still drive a car good, because my arms and legs have done it so much. I don't even know I'm doing it.
Oh, you're not that old. Stop.
Well, no, it really doesn't. I my brain doesn't tell me heel and toe or use my left foot on the brake now. You get what I mean? That's not processing through my head.
Right, because yeah, exactly. It's just like I don't want to use the phrase riding a bike, because but there you go.
It is. It's called muscle memory. I mean,
Yep.
well, this is why simulators are so important now. I mean, you sit in a simulator with the proper position, and you build this muscle memory with this sight picture. So you have a good sight picture on a track. Your hands and feet learn to do the proper movement at the proper times. You get into a car, you've just taken 70% of your day, and you've got that figured out.
Yeah. And honestly, Parker Thompson and what he's doing in Pro Mazda right now, him really taking the simulator, and what he's been doing on it, I think it really has helped him, and it's really translated into what he's doing right now.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, just with what Christian and Kelly and Mike, all of us did with this Charles Finelli. I mean, this is a guy that was having a trouble making the cutoff, whatever it is. I don't know the rules, but he was struggling. My cousin Johnny hooked us all up together, and he had a much better event. So working with, Kelly Jones and Christian and Mike, all these guys at Racecraft One down there, and myself actually helped this guy out with a simulator. I say that's pretty impressive, overall.
Agreed.
Yeah, and
agreed.
And I gotta be honest with you, man. I was sitting next to Christian, and I was like, Finelli looks a lot better. and he's like, yeah, I'm proud of him. Look at I mean,
yeah.
I
mean, it's nice to do that. It makes you feel good to help a guy out. He loves it just as much as that kid running up front. You know what I'm saying? He's working just as hard to make his money and go out there and choosing to spend his days doing what he's doing. And the fact that the technology is there with these simulators, it's mind-blowing. I mean, military's been kind of doing it for a long time. With some of the military stuff I've done, I've flown the Osprey simulator and some tank simulators and driven a tank and some of the gun simulators. So they've known for a long time that doing that, the sounds, the sights, the feels, really then help when they actually get in battle. There's not as much new to process, so to speak. It's the same way in racing.
You didn't by chance fly an Osprey after that, did you?
No, they wouldn't let me go that far. We got to ride in it, but no, they wouldn't let us play. But I will say this: you think our simulators are full motion? We went into that one, and I said, "So, what's the full capabilities of this thing?" And they're like, "Oh, well, when we get guys that piss us off, so to speak, we just turn it up to 100 and don't let them belt in." And yeah, they've got a weird way of, especially this was with the Marines, so they're even more. I mean, they do not mess around. So I said, well, let's try it. So we all strapped in, and they turned it up to 100%. And I tried to land, as well as I could. And even my bump, and let me tell you, I walked out of there going, whoa. It was like really crashing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how many times did you die in it?
Well, we were having a lot of fun. I will say that.
That's awesome.
We were practicing on who could hang on to the walls, but
that's awesome.
It's this is one of those big. It's like the Dallara simulator has, where they spit the thing 10 feet across the room in a split second if they want to. So
yeah, it's like you're walking into like NASA almost.
Yeah. So, but still, you break it all down, and funny stories, yada yada. But at the end of the day, it's what's really helping these young drivers. It's one, giving kids, iRacing is giving kids an opportunity to experience the potential of driving that never would have even known they might have a talent for it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. One of my favorite guys is David Empringham. I don't know if you guys know David Empringham or have heard of him or anything. He's a bit older kid.
The name sounds familiar.
He, in Indy Lights, our first year in Indy Lights, this guy handed all of us our ass, and I mean Kanan, Neves, everybody, Damata, the whole slew of us. Like we didn't even know what we were doing. Serious.
That good, huh?
He just, well, it was a good year for him.
Excuse me.
You know, everything clicked, whatever. Really an impressive man. He's a very good person. But what was impressive to me about David Empringham was David Empringham didn't start trying to be a driver, racing as a kid, go-karts and all this stuff. David Empringham came along and did one of these Canadian do you got talent things, you know, that they have for racing.
Yeah.
And was like 18 years old, I believe. I might be off on that, but he was like 18 the first time he stepped in a, you know, competition type car.
Sounds like an Oliver Askew type of story. I mean, yeah, Oliver's only been racing for what, 4 years tops?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that was always, there's a kid who, you know, I came from America. When I went to Indy Lights, I had 2 kids, Kanan and Neves from Brazil, 2 kids, Empringham, and I want to say, I forget who, Borbide, Cloud was the other Canadian guy. You know, there were 2 French guys. It was like countries were sending, like having competitions, finding the best and sending them to America to race. Whereas Americans, we were just scrapping it out in the frickin' backyard trying to see who got the first knife and could get away fastest. I mean, it was tough. You know, we were all, there was not an American group trying to send us to race. So that was the first time my eyes got opened up that, you know, other countries looked at this in a different way. You know what I'm saying? And therefore actually had a platform for people to experience motorsports that, you know, as Americans, you either kind of had family or kind of had to fall into it. There wasn't,
right.
It wasn't in the, you know, job deal at college. Oh, this is a potential career choice. You know what I mean? Whereas iRacing, I think, has changed that. Now there's actually, in these simulators, there is a potential job choice, both driving, engineering, you know, data stuff, really the gamut of what these guys are doing, except hands-on working. So it's impressive.
And I think not only that, what iRacing is doing is it's teaching the fans, you know, more about what racecraft really is, you know, what they really do and have to go through during a race, almost, is because, you know, you never had that before, and people didn't really know what went into you getting out there on the track finally, you know what I mean? Because you're the most visible person of it, so they think you've done it all. But no, there's a big team behind you.
Huge team.
Exactly. And not only that, you know, just the racecraft itself and, you know, the different, you know, things you have to go through and the different things you have to do, you know, it's almost like a shock to them when they start iRacing personally. And I think it's really good for racing by teaching the fans, you know, almost to look for different things that they would have never looked for before as they're watching a race now, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm about to learn because I just signed up literally for my first iRacing thing last week when I had to do this thing for Charles. So
right on.
I gotta go find me a steering wheel and pedals and figure this deal out.
I got me a Porsche Fanatec RSR wheel right here, and I'll send you a friend request.
Okay.
Right on.
I gotta get. I did 2 laps with the mouse. That sucked. So it was like, okay, I need a wheel and pedals.
Definitely.
I don't know if I need the full motion deal. Of course, when I get to Indy, I'll go down and play with them at Racecraft. But at least something that I can turn.
Yep. There you go.
I do have some Gran Turismo miles. I will admit that.
So, Missy, do you have any questions that you've been wanting to ask and can't get in there because we've been talking too much?
No, I just want to talk about the 2 ground jewels that happened this weekend.
Okay.
Monaco and the Indy 500. So.
Yep, Missy is our data machine over there. She's got all the all the finishing orders and everything that we like to push out there and talk a little bit about. So, Missy, go for it.
So Monaco happened this weekend, the crown jewel, if you will, for Formula One, and
Yes.
Daniel Ricciardo was the pole sitter, and he finished it in first place, followed by Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton was the podium for Formula One, and they had Kimi Räikkönen, Valtteri Bottas, Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly, Nico Hulkenberg, Max Verstappen, and Carlos Sainz was the top 10. And then you had Marcus Ericsson, Sergio Perez, Kevin Magnussen, Stoffel Vandoorne, Romain Grosjean, Sergei Sorokin, Lance Stroll, Charles Leclerc, Brendan Hartley, and Fernando Alonso was your finishing order for Monaco. I gotta say this one was it was pretty boring. I zoned out after a couple laps, and yeah.
It's a parade.
Yeah,
parade
it was.
race,
Yeah, I mean, Monaco usually is. It's not, but yeah, so it wasn't.
You don't have a ton of passing zones.
Yeah, no.
And then you had to look at Ricardo drink out of a boat.
Oh, that's awesome. I was hoping, I had my fingers crossed he was going to make the prince and princess drink out of a shoe, but he let him drink out of the bottle. But I thought it would have been hysterical if you got him drink out the shoe. But yeah,
It's disgusting. Sorry, I didn't see Will drinking out of a shoe. He didn't pour the milk into his shoe. I mean, Just saying.
But yeah, so.
Well, I think that's just lack of creativity on Will's part.
No, it's smarts.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with you.
I know.
No,
but
but
I know.
I know.
Different, but
Yeah,
I know you don't like the shoey.
yeah. I tackled Dave.
I
and
love the
everyone.
shoey. To tell you the truth. I love watching him do the shoey. So I mean,
I don't. It's disgusting.
I mean, seriously,
Rob, hold on.
If he says, if Ricardo gives you his shoe, are you going to say, "Oh no, I'm good"? No, you're going to drink.
You're going to drink it, of course.
Of course you are, and then throw up later. I mean,
good, buddy.
drink
I'm
it, throw up
good.
later. Drink it and throw up later. It's all
Rob, would you drink out of a
Well,
You on my team or her team? Oh, boy.
I don't know. I guess first, let me get on the podium in an F1 race and we'll deal with it. But there's a lot of things I have to get first. But, whatever they're doing
Here's
now.
some champagne in a shoe, right?
I don't know that it's going to stick like drinking milk did. How about that?
No. Probably not. Probably not, man.
Good point.
Well, speaking of, I know we like to give a grade to the races. What did you guys feel about the 500? I know what grade I would give it, but where were you guys on that?
Rob, go first.
Well, I didn't get to see the whole thing. Do you want just the race, or are you saying pretty much the whole event?
The whole kit.
Because to me, the whole, Indy's like a month thing, kind of. You know what I mean? I'm still old school that way. I would say that overall, this year's Indy 500 was better. I would say that it's probably in the, B plus area. Because we did have some guys bump, and there were some things that they're going to have to get a hold of. I mean, the whole Hinchcliffe thing, wow. I don't know what to even say about that.
Should have been in the priority line. That's what I say.
Indy Karma?
Yeah, well, I mean, it just...
Indy Karma.
I don't see how there should be... Bump day should be the last thing you do. It makes no sense that you bump and then you go out there and you do it again just to see where you start. Whatever.
I don't get that either. Yeah, I agree with you there. I agree with you 100%.
And if, bump day, when we had people to bump, if we're going to go to tradition, you at least had a chance. So that was the whole thing, was getting bumped and then having a chance to bump back in, which meant you had a second day. If you know what I mean. So
right.
To me, I think I'm all up for new things. I'm all up for, new things happening. But I think part of Indy is the tradition. And some of it, I mean, if we break all the traditions, we're going to forget where we were. You know what I mean? There is something to be said for history and traditions, and I think Indy encapsulates that the most. That's why it's so important to win. Because changing some of that stuff, I think, is too much. I understand how they're changing it for other qualifying things and for whatnot, and try to spice up their day. I don't see why you're doing it in Indy. To me, leave it alone. That place it's done pretty good for a long time.
It's it's sacred ground as far as I'm concerned. So don't if it's not broke, don't fix it.
So I'm not happy about that stuff. It was nice to see some people get bumped, at least finally. The race itself, other than some guys having some incidents on their own, which was strange, it was kind of a boring race.
The whole turn 2 thing. I don't know what that was about. Like, it just seemed like whenever they crashed on their own, they lost the rear right out of turn 2. It was who was it?
Late in the day, it was 4.
Yeah, it was 2 and 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, Sage was 4, right. But Danica, Davison, and Ed was 2.
Yeah.
Am I missing one here?
Oni was in 2, I think.
Yep. And then I don't know what happened with Davison. Everybody's that I'm not even going to touch that.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's enough people freaking out about that one.
I mean, it kind of seems like the cars would get a push and then snap loose at the exit, which sometimes happen if you're pushing. But I don't know. It was difficult to tell. I will say it was very strange that the drivers that it happened to. In other words, usually don't see that happening to Kanan and Bourdais and some of those guys. Some of them, okay, but a couple of those guys, I'm like, okay, so something's up with the cars, or that guy wouldn't have done that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so Frank, what do you think?
Me, I would give the race an A+. Yep, A+.
Okay, I got a question.
A+.
Christian, does he ever give anything but an A+ to the Indy 500? I'm just
no.
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 No, I suppose not.
Was that Christian?
An A+. That's a bit of a stretch.
Well,
no, Frank.
For me personally, it was an A+.
What are your reasons behind it? Oh, well, I know why you're saying that. You're just saying that because Will won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say my fan side says A+ because Will won, but then my other side of me says B-.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
My fan side A+. My unbiased opinion of what I saw. Yeah, I would give it a solid B. There you go.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah, I'm gonna second that with a B. It was definitely not my favorite 500 at all. I wish there was just some more drama at the end.
There was drama at the end. What are you talking about?
No. You're saying that because Will won it, but I
no, he almost didn't win it because of that yellow.
Oh well, yeah, no. But I mean, those last like 4 laps or so, I wish that Carpenter would have had something for him. That'd have been cool.
Or those other guys would have stayed out, even run out of gas on the track or something. Yeah,
exactly.
Because that's kind of when it got fun for me when Wilson was leading. I was just like, holy crap, this guy might pull this off.
Right.
Exactly. And then the yellow comes out, and I'm like, oh my God, he might, the fuel, he might have enough fuel now.
He just might have enough.
Yeah,
that's.
Because trust me, everybody's asking me, how many laps has it been? And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, like, don't you guys have this up on your booth there? Why are you asking me?
When he pulled in, Servia pulled in, and I was like, all right, well, we know Will's going back to the front now. And then Carpenter just didn't have anything for him at the end. And
well, you know what was different this year, really, and I don't know why, must be the aero package, but we're back to kind of like the beginning mid-'80s where the leader was able to pull the field. It's been a long time since that happened. I mean,
really, yeah.
To be quite honest, the leader was leaving almost every single time. The leader could pull away. So This was one of the few years that I think halfway these guys realized early on, well, however, by half of the race, I need to be in front. This whole thing about, okay, where do you want to be in the last 20 laps? Everyone went first.
Yeah, exactly.
First where I want to be, because if I'm first, they can't catch me. And you saw that with everyone that led the race. So.
Yeah, I mean, look what happened to Elio with the 3 in 2014. I mean, he was leading, and he lost the race because he was leading pretty much.
Yeah, no. It's been with that last car we had, that design.
Yeah.
Pretty much, first wasn't that catbird seat.
Nope. But with this, and with this new car, it's almost like if you're in first, you are pretty much, yep.
Yeah, you were solid. I mean,
exactly.
He was leaving. You could see the group behind him was packed up, but first place was actually able to pull the group, and not just at the end. Everybody that led throughout the race was doing that. So something's different that way. I expect IndyCar to make a change.
Oh, definitely.
Because honestly, that is what adds to the drama at the end of the race.
Yeah, definitely heading in a positive direction, and we've been going in a positive direction since Derek Walker came in and kind of laid down a little bit of a blueprint finally, and then we got Jay Fry coming in, pretty much implementing that too, and then changing it up a little bit to make it a little bit better. I think it's just been really good for the series, and it's just getting better and better. So.
Yeah, well, they finally look like Indy cars again. That's
exactly, because the last couple of years I've been saying every time I think of an Indy car, the IL-15 pops in my head, and that shouldn't happen, right? Yeah.
Really? The lights car pops into your head, yeah?
The last couple of years, yeah.
Well, it looks a little more like an Indy car. I mean,
well, look at our thumbnail, Christian. It's kind of Ed Carpenter's Carlin car, because it looked like an Indy car. I'm gonna have to change our thumbnail of our picture of what the podcast when you subscribe to the podcast, it's that's Ed Carpenter's car. I used his Carlin car is Indy Lights car, so
okay.
Because it looked like an Indy car. If Ed
Jones's car.
What did I say?
Ed Carpenter.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't. It was Ed Jones' car, the 11th of the car.
Yeah.
Sorry, I messed that up. I got his first name right.
You got wrong Ed. Yeah, the wrong Ed.
I'm sure they're both very happy about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure Ed Jones is. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, the neat thing is, and I mean, again, the knee jerk. Unfortunately, what caused that weird stuff behind the car was a sad day, but at the end of the day, it's IndyCar racing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Open wheel racing is open wheel racing, and drivers are not supposed to touch tires.
Exactly.
When you do, it gets big real fast. It's just part of the business.
And that's what made IndyCar the best drivers, best of the best come here, because if you can race over 220 that close together, that precision of racing, that means you're one of the best drivers in the world, and that's why you're in Indy. And that's what made Indy, so, high up on the list of wanting to be there,
Right.
Because you could say I'm an IndyCar driver, and that came with prestige almost.
And a risk.
Huge risk, of course.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you don't see sprint car guys putting Nerf bars behind their rear tires, like climbing them every night, all across the country.
Exactly.
It's called man up and don't do that.
Yeah, but just don't jump out on the track after you get wrecked. That's all.
Well, that's a whole nother level of stupid that I don't even want to get into.
No.
Say there.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. It was bad idea.
So, and then the finishing order for the Indianapolis 500 this year, the 102nd running, like we said, was Will Power was your winner this year. Yeah, followed by Ed Carpenter and Scott Dixon to round out your podium. Then you had Alexander Rossi, Ryan Hunter-Ray, Simon Pagino, Carlos Munoz, Joseph Newgarden, Robert Wickens, and Graham Rahal was your top 10. Then you had J.R. Hildebrand, Marco Andretti, Mateus Lace, Gabby Chavez, Stephen Wilson, Jack Harvey, Oriol Servia, Charlie Kimball, Zachary Clemens-Mel, and Spencer Piggott was the top 20. Then you had Connor Daly, Max Chilton, Zach Veach, Jay Howard, Tony Kanaan, Sage Karam, Elio Castroneves, Sebastian Bourdais, Kyle Kaiser, Danica Patrick, Ed Jones, Takuma Sato, and James Davison was your finishing order for the 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500.
Missy, how many were on the lead lap?
That would have been the 18th place, Charlie Kimball. They were all on the lead lap. So 19 down was a lap down, at least.
That's impressive, too. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
it's a lot of guys with a chance, basically, at the end of the race.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it used to be the top 3 were on the lead lap.
If you were lucky, and some years not even that. So
exactly. Yep.
Good for IndyCar for that. That part's better.
And I heard a number was like 400 and was it 28 passes, or was it? I'm close. I'm sort of close, Missy.
I think so. 428 sounds about right.
Yeah, that's a lot of passing. I mean, and kudos to Rossi from coming from the back row to, what was he, 4th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 32nd to 4th. Yep.
Good on Rossi.
He had a really good working car.
He really did. I mean, if he started anywhere up, I mean, he just had a horrible qualifying car. I mean, geez Louise.
But even then, you still got to say he was in the top 10 by 3/4 of the race.
Yep.
All right, there it's all. I mean, by the time those last 2 yellows happen, everybody's on equal footing.
Yeah, and that's what I love about it. It wasn't a fuel-saving race. It wasn't a tire strategy race. It was a driver race, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what IndyCar is all about, and that's what we're back to. And yes, it is spec racing that got us there, I know. But it's exciting. It's drawing eyes to the sport again, and that's what we need to build on. And once, like I was saying earlier, once we get, another 10 years, let's say, and as long as the trend keeps going, I mean, I think Mazda Road to Indy and IndyCar are going to be freaking huge. That's all I'm saying. Because the talent that's coming in, like you were saying, when you were in lights, you're racing against different guys from other countries. I mean, MRTI right now is just littered with them. So, and they're all coming over
the
here.
only thing that struggles, in my opinion, on that road, and I do agree with everything you said, and obviously, we want open wheel racing to continue, hopefully, forever and keep getting bigger.
Mm-hmm.
But lights it's quite expensive. We're starting to see guys. I mean, it's almost a toss-up. I can go run Indy or Indy Lights you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 8
The
cars.
number's real close there. Yeah. So that needs to be addressed. I mean, Indy Lights back when I was running, they were 30-car fields.
Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm. So I would like to see that get better. But other than that, the 2000, the Pro Mazda's just unbelievable. And
oh, yeah.
I think there's hope for it to grow.
Yeah, I mean...
the simulator world's turning it upside down, too. I mean, wow. That's just... You guys, there's a whole show on really what's going on there, how fast it's growing, and how it's changed the sport. I mean, my God, it's...
honestly, I mean, when we started the show, it was all about IndyCar and IMSA and everything, and we just gravitated naturally to MRTI, and we're I'd say 70% MRTI really.
Okay.
And I mean, IndyCar is still our number one favorite, but what's there to say really after you go through it? And I mean, we have so many MRTI drivers on, and they're just the great stories that come out of it.
Yeah.
Everybody's coming from different walks of life, and it's just always just very exciting. Christian, for example, hi, you know, he was
No,
on,
there is a lot of good stories and good personalities and
great people like people like Christian,
Yeah.
And
I mean, I say, bad as it is this year, even Danica coming back, at least there was something to talk about. I mean, IndyCar is a little bit dry for their media stuff. The social media world, and it's like the same stuff. It's almost like they got one publicist for the whole group. Whereas what I see coming out of these kids is a lot more personable, a lot more about their life.
I haven't talked to a PR rep in years. And I don't want to. I can't stand. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say anything anymore about that.
Well, if they're doing a good job, I mean, obviously Hinchcliffe's got somebody good. I'm very impressed with his personality and what he's actually.
Oh yeah, definitely.
When he's the only one like Helio was, and we need that. You need some color. The other thing that's missing a little bit, I have to say, and people would probably disagree with me, but when I was racing, there was a bit more competition. Now it seems like everybody goes out to dinner and hangs out. It's like they're all buddies. It wasn't that way when I raced. You had your buddies, but for the most part,
Indy Lights is like that. They hate each other.
Do they? Okay.
Not a single driver in Indy Lights likes each other.
They're not hanging out? Okay.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in IndyCar, it's like, I mean, wow. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look at Simon and Joseph. They're, the signature war that they're going. It is fun, though, to watch for the fans and all, but...
Oh, no, that's over.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
yes.
It went on for a month or so.
Yeah, well, yeah. Joseph conceded to Simon, so the cop pulling him over was too much for Joseph to overcome.
Well, how can you best that, honestly? Have the Marines come in and take out Simon? I mean, honestly, where do you go from that?
It's over when he signed your mom. If anybody ever signed your mom, that's the end.
That is true. Yeah, I mean, Christian's been pushing for that.
Signed your mom. Like what?
It was either your mom or Simon's dog, right? I think it was the two ones. Yeah, the two we came up with that might top that.
Well, at least there's something to go back and forth. I mean, we forget about like the 60s and the 70s about the Parnelli Foyt days where they got along, but there were big competitions.
Well, they respected each other, but they didn't like afterwards go hang out.
Oh no, they weren't doing the frickin' Ninja Warrior together and stuff like that. No. No. But there was a very healthy respect. But there was also, I don't know, that was the heyday of IndyCar. That's what you're hoping to get back to. That's what. Yep. You know what I'm saying? That's when it was its biggest. So I would like to see a little bit more competition. This isn't everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah,
it's racing.
Well, I mean, and this new car is a great start for that because it really is weeding out the good from the bad. So
that's nice to see. Yeah.
It's really exposing who's really good and who's really not.
And teams too. I mean, I can't believe, like, what was it? I think I read Hinch's engineer basically left.
Yeah, no, she got fired.
Okay, well.
Yeah, Sam fired her for that, and I can't believe you get fired for a pinhole in a tire. You can't. You can't.
We don't know that's what she got fired for. That's
we
speculation.
Don't know why. Yeah.
You can speculate all you want. I can tell you right now he fired her.
Well, yeah, she was let go, but are we ever going to know the real
Lena
reason?
Gaddy. Lena Gaddy. You don't. Oh my God.
I mean, I wish she would have got a little bit more of a chance. I get it. She's more of a road.
Been there.
Stop talking. She's more of a street course, road course person. But yeah, I get it. But it was only the second oval, for crying out loud. I mean, you knew she didn't have any oval experience. You could have gave her a little bit more than just 2 ovals.
You've got a very good point. And
again,
why didn't you bring in an oval engineer?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And again, James Hinchcliffe should not have been sitting in that stupid line. He should have been in the priority line, so then none of that would have happened. But whatever, that's just my opinion. He shouldn't have been.
Well, and quite honestly, Pippa kind of spent a little bit long out there too. I mean,
yeah, but she was out. I wouldn't kill her for that because she was already out.
No. There's no. But again,
she wasn't going to get there.
There was 3 or 4 exactly. So she could have easily come in. There were 3 or 4 things that happened to James. It just didn't go his way.
No.
I mean, Oriole Servio was out there 4 times, and you could have you should have been in that other one. Period.
Yeah, Oriole Servio's team did exactly what they should have done. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, and at what point, I have to think you're.
Now
you gotta know you're not going to make a big gain. In other words, you're out of the field. A 10th ain't going to get it.
Now, do you think
you need to make a jump?
Yeah, I mean, should should have race control or the IndyCar officials have made Pippa come in after her first lap or 2, so James would have had a chance? I mean, honestly, would she do 3 laps before they told her to come in? And that was just too much. It was too long.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think that race control should be doing that. I think that's something that Pippa does. Yes. And for all we know, Pippa maybe made a pretty good chunk of money. Somebody's saying, "Stay out there, honey."
I
Stay out there.
Guarantee she doesn't.
Make sure you don't come in, okay?
She already made the chunk of money before she even got in the car.
Well, but you get what I'm saying. I mean, we don't. I mean, I remember hearing stories of the older days in the 70s and stuff that sometimes guys would go out to qualify and things like rags would happen to fly out of the car accidentally.
Oops.
So they had to, do track cleanup and stuff like that. So.
Oh, that's dirty.
Well, there used to be a competition where you had to think about it and actually, again,
really.
You used to have your group and they had their group.
Honestly, I mean, Rossi could have gotten to the 9. He tried, but I think there was more to that than him just doing that. But he had every right to do it, and that's just competition, right? I mean, and Andretti knows what he's doing,
right?
I mean, he's only won the last 2 or 3, whatever. I can't keep track with all of his cars,
But I can tell you that Michael comes from an old school
mentality. Yeah, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah,
that's why I had no problem with Rossi being out there. He had every right to. It's James's team's fault he wasn't there.
Yeah. No. Well, like I said, I mean, not only is the team's fault, but then.
When is Sam going to say it was my fault? When is he ever going to take responsibility for anything?
Well,
that's why he
fired
go
down a long list of drivers.
That's why he finally
do that.
I fully think that's why he fired her so he didn't have to say, well, it was me. I screwed up, because you'll never hear that from him.
Arrow puts a lot of pressure. Arrow's. At the end of the day, when something like that happens, that movie where somebody's got to go to jail.
True.
Hey,
true,
man.
True.
Somebody's gonna take it. Sorry, it wasn't your fault, but
that's what was great about it was there was competition, there was drama, and that's what we need. And it was good to see finally again. It sucks that it was Hinch, a fan favorite. I didn't,
Well, the bad part was that it happened in one day.
Exactly. They should have split it apart.
What? That was bump day? Oh, that's it.
Yeah. It
what am I tuning in tomorrow
and then
for?
Bump day. Pole day, bump day. 2 great days instead of just one day, and then who cares about the rest?
Well, why was I turning on Sunday? I mean, I was planning on watching qualifying Sunday. It didn't happen. It all happened Saturday. You know what I'm saying? So it was over.
It's like, okay.
It doesn't matter. And with these cars nowadays, it's not like my dad's era where you really wanted to be in the first half of the field. You honestly could be anywhere in that race and still have a good shot. Rossi proved it.
So did JPM.
So you know what I mean. So why are we doing a Sunday qualifying again just to see? I don't get it.
Yeah. Trust me. I've had so many listeners say the same exact thing. Why is this format like the way it is? It doesn't make any sense. And they're all
Well,
right.
and not to mention, look at all the news we missed.
It's silly.
I mean, we missed all Saturday night. What's Hinchcliffe going to do? What's Pippa going to do? Who might be on the bubble now? You know what I mean? Those are all your stories.
Now, do you when Pinch got bumped? I was like, now whose seat is he taking? That was my first thought. Whose seat is he buying?
Yeah, that's what everybody
thought. That doesn't happen anymore. It used to.
Yeah, but do you agree with it?
Well, I used to.
You used to agree with it?
Well, yeah, that was racing.
No, that's buying a seat that someone else raced.
Dude, do you think racing has ever been anything other than buying a seat?
Good point. Very. You know what?
I mean, I got news for you. That's motor racing.
Robby, check and mate, sir. Right there, check and mates. That was a great. Wow. Put me in my place right there. That's awesome. All right, well, Missy, what do we got coming up? We got Detroit, right? We got the. See, this is what
Detroit.
This is what I don't understand about IndyCar. Okay. I just want to throw this out real quick. This is the last year that Chevrolet is sponsoring Belle Isle. Okay, next year it's going to the politicians who will say yay or nay to the money that they're going to have to spend to build the track and break it down. Detroit will disappear. Yep. The next year. This will be the last year for Detroit. Mark my freaking words. So if you have never been to Detroit and you want to go this year, because you're not going to go next year. It happened to Baltimore. It's going to happen to Detroit, and I hope it does. And then they replace it with a freaking oval to capitalize on the momentum off of the Indy 500. Because going from a super speedway to a freaking street course is ludicrous. It doesn't make any sense. You're not capitalizing on the momentum you've just created. I don't get it.
Well, you're supposed to go to Milwaukee. Historically,
yes, yeah, but it does. Well, it just doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. But
that's the other thing. Where are you going to go?
Oh, there's plenty of places you could go. I mean, I don't know where, but Jay Fry seems to have the gift of gab to get them to where they need to go. I mean, look what he did with the Boston race. Turned it into a great Watkins Glen race. So there you
go. But historically, if you look at IndyCar, besides Indy, you're not getting a ton of people at ovals, where you do get a ton of people at street courses.
Well, you're getting a ton of people at Pocono because Pocono's been a great race year after year after year, and the
got a history. It's got sure there's a couple of them, but your newer ovals, you're struggling. You're struggling in Iowa. You're struggling in some of the other places. So, but you don't struggle at street courses.
True, because the people are kind of already there.
There you go. I mean, Chris Pook was pretty smart thinking of that.
But look at Road America. People aren't there. You know how there's nobody that lives around Road America, but yet you go there and the place is just the place is huge and you can't move around.
Yeah, but it's a historic track.
Exactly.
Okay, same with Mid-Ohio. So your established historic tracks do well, but you're trying to grow. You're talking about new places, new markets going into. How are you going to do that?
I'm not saying grow. I'm saying take a race that is already doing good and replace it with Detroit. Like just sort of schedule if you can.
Okay.
Yeah. That's kind of where I was going with it. Say move Pocono to next week. And that would be
that's a really big race, so you got to spread your big ones out a little bit, or you're going to have everything in one part of the season.
Or, you get another big race. Or how about Texas?
Well, they did Texas for a while, and that was good.
Yeah, and honestly, I think, as good as a race as Phoenix was this year, there was nobody there. But, if you have a great race, they will come. So first you have to prove it's a good race, and then they'll come the next year. See what I'm saying? Because the previous 2 races of Phoenix were just atrocious, so nobody went. But this year was great, and I'm telling you, next year.
Well, Phoenix used to be the setup for Indy.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. So then we have to replace Phoenix to the setup of Indy.
Well, I'm saying when
or how about
when I was younger, you had Long Beach, then you had Phoenix. Phoenix was the preparation for Indy. In other words, the setups were real close. Guys used it. Well, it was an important race going to Indy.
Well, how about no setup for Indy? Just Indy's the first super speedway of the year. How about that? Right there.
Well, kinda, yeah, they did that for a while too. I mean, they've shortened the month so much that it's all different.
Yeah, I mean, I think the GP has I mean, there were so many people at the GP. It was great to see,
and it's a great race.
It really is, but it is cutting into the month of May.
There's no more month of May. It's
exactly. So
get all together.
That's why I'm a huge advocate, and I get killed for it. But I'll say it again: do the Indy GP as the last race, because I'm tired of seeing Sonoma. I'm sorry, I'm tired of it. Sonoma should not be the championship ending race, because you have a really big chance of it being just a parade.
Yeah, no, actually, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, I honestly like what Indy, with Doug Bowles being at the Speedway, that place is doing better than I've seen it in my whole life.
Yeah, and
finally getting events there, and just as far as the Speedway, which if you love the Indy 500, then you've got to be a fan of the racetrack. Right
on. By the way, I just want to throw it out there. Christian had to leave a little bit early. He had an engagement he had to go to. Because we're running a little bit late, but it's okay. I mean, it's not every day we get to have a driver of your caliber and everything on. So, but Christian, I just want to throw out there, make sure you guys check out Christian's book. Missy, do you want to plug Christian's book real quick?
That would be The Outside Groove, or no, My Life and Story of the Outside Groove.
That's right.
Available on Amazon and other fine retails.
Yep, forwarded by Willie T. Ribs. Check it out. Great book. And it's a Christian Aleixo, Aleixo, racing on Facebook. Check it out. Get the book. It's great. And thank you, Christian. So, all right. So.
And on that note,
yep.
Hold
on. I just want to thank Rob. Thank you for coming on. This was a lot of fun.
No problem.
And hopefully we have you on again, because I mean we can keep there's so many things we can go over and talk about, really, and obviously
a lot of the subject matters, and don't know if anybody really wants to hear our opinions, but if they're open to it, sure, it's just an opinion.
Oh, trust me. I mean, it's rare we ever do a 2-hour show. Honestly, we're normally like about an hour or so, but 2 hours, it's rare. But it's been a lot of fun, and the conversation's been great, and having you on has just been just just thank you for coming on. Really,
not a problem. Keep in touch, and I hope to meet you guys when I get around Indy.
Definitely, and Missy, I think. On that note.
I think on that note, that I know that Frank, he knows this time. And Christian, of course, he knows. And now Robby knows. Will Power's your Indy 500 champ,